Good afternoon, friends. As you guys have probably seen on my shorts feed, I have been polishing fork tubes. I have this 41mm Fatboy front end. I believe it's off a 93 or a 96 Fatboy. I can't exactly remember. But I've taken this apart and I'm cleaning it up in an effort to put it on the 1975 Shovelhead. Just to make the wheel, the rotor, and all the things fit properly, because if you've noticed, on that bike it's running Fatboy wheels on the front and rear, and with the configuration of the triple trees and the current front end that's on that, it doesn't fit right. There's a spacing issue, and obviously the rotor's bigger, so I can't actually get the right front caliper on there. This should help me out a ton to where I can run a single front caliper. I'll have to run a spacer for the rotor, I believe, just because the Fatboy triple trees are a little bit narrower than they are on a Shovelhead. So I'm redoing this front end to make it work on this project, and hopefully this answers a lot of my questions that I have. Actually gives me a solution to put this bike together, one step easier. But I wanted to kind of bring you guys through how these things go together. If you haven't done, a fork build or a front end build, it's relatively simple. There's a couple key components that you need for it. Obviously, you need some sort of a seal driver. This is a Motion Pro. This is the 41mm driver. This is the 080439, it looks like. It's kind of beat up. Oh, excuse me, 080489. That's their part number. I've had this for a long time. It's been bouncing around in my toolbox for many, many years. I've used it probably a dozen or so times. And then a good gasket kit. So I like James gaskets. I've been using those for a long time, so I picked up a complete kit here. I also have gone through and cleaned the bottom studs that thread up through the bottom of the fork legs that hold everything kind of together. One of the key practices that I like to do on the tubes is I like to leave the seals on if I can, so that way I remember how everything went. So those are still in place. I'll go ahead and pull those off. I'll open up my kit here, and then we'll start assembly. So of course we have the big ring. That'll have to go on first. And then there's the seal. This is the bottom side. This is the top side. And I'm just going to fit this down into place for now. Now that the seal is staged and in its proper spot, I'm almost ready to put the leg back onto the tube. One of the things I like to do is I like to leave these sealed with the spring still inside. That way the damper tube still is able to retain its tension on there and won't slide around. You won't have to fish it out of the tube here or into the lower leg. That way everything's easier to assemble. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to tip this upside down. I'm going to slide this leg into place. And with this all the way in place, I'm going to create a little tension on my workbench here. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my brass crush washer on. I'm going to use a little blue Loctite just to kind of hold everything in place. You don't want these backing out. And I'm going to start hand threading this in from the bottom. Once you've got the bottom bolt threaded in place, you go ahead and tighten it up. So I'm going to tighten this up all the way. Sometimes you have to hold the top in place. Okay, I've got one installed. I'm going to go ahead and do the second side now. Just repeating the process again. Put the crush washer onto the bolt there. And then go ahead and pull the old seal off. I'll do that before I forget. I don't want to reinstall the old seal. Not that they were in bad shape or they leaked, but we're this far. It doesn't make sense to put the old seals back on, in my opinion. Put some blue Loctite on that bolt there. This one's a little harder to get into, so I'm going to feed it in with the wrench. Hold the tube in place and tighten it up. Okay, now that I have the leg assembled, I'm going to go ahead and slide the seal on. My large ring is already pushed down in. Obviously, bottom of seal, top of seal. You can see if you look in the corners here, maybe you can see it or not, there's a spring that runs all the way around it that's pulled it together. We'll slide that all the way down the tube, get it into position here, and then with our seal driver, which this is the easy part here, slide this over the tube as well, and then just drive the seal in place. With the seal in place, there are these retaining clips that go in, and there's actually a channel in there that these set into. So I'll go ahead and slide this down in place. I'll get one corner in. I'll slowly work my way around it. We'll push it down until it snaps. If you look inside here, you can see that the snap ring here is holding the seal in place, so it cannot back out. This fork tube is completely assembled. We're just going to take the other fork tube and repeat the process. I'll line the seal up. Get it square in the hole here. I'll go ahead and drive this in. And the same thing, take the spring clip, feed it over the top, push it into the channel, and work your way around it. And again, if you look down into the tube here, you can see that the spring clip is in place, holding that seal in. Now, a couple things I'm not doing. I'm not taking these screws out. I'm not replacing those crush washers. These did not leak either. I did not drain the fork oil this way. I took them apart, drained the oil at the bottom, cleaned the tubes. There may be some residual oil in the tubes themselves. I believe them to be pretty clean. They sat for about 2 weeks in an upright position. I do need to go ahead and clean these just a little bit, just because they do have some rust on them, but that's where the triple tree is set. It does leave you with a couple extra gaskets. Obviously the top gaskets for the top nuts here, those go in between there, so I have those to replace. And then I do have the rubber O-rings that go in where the caps go here, and I'll replace those eventually. Now that I have these legs assembled, the next step is going to be tearing the bike apart. Actually taking the complete front end off of the motorcycle and then putting these legs onto the bike. Once I'm at that part, I'll get these legs swapped out onto the motorcycle, and at that point, I will fill them with fork oil. I'm not doing that beforehand. I'm going to do that once it's on the motorcycle. That's my next step. All right, I took a couple minutes here and I got the front end completely mounted onto the Shovelhead triple trees here. Looks pretty good. I'm happy with how the legs turned out. They polished up really nicely. But I am running into a little bit of an issue. Something I had thought about initially and had forgotten about is these tabs here. They need to be flush with the backside of these legs. One of the things to keep in mind when you're using a Fatboy style set of legs is the triple trees themselves are narrower and the fender fits a little differently. I'm going to run the stock FL fender here, so what I need to do is actually need to go through and cut these off. So I'll have to work on that. I'll have to tear this back apart and I'll have to cut it off, but that's going to be for another day. Right now, this is as far as I'm going to get on this project, so I'm going to leave it here and we'll check back soon. Well, it's a new day in the shop here and we're back to working on the 1975 Shovelhead. Now, a lot has changed on this bike since the last time I recorded, and hopefully I can loop all these videos together and it'll make some sense. But one of the things that I had to do was change out the entire front end on the bike, and when I did that, I ran into a problem. And that's where we stopped the video. So now I'll show you what I've done to correct the problem. As you can see, the front fender is now mounted on the bike. Everything's the way it should be as far as the fender goes. What I had to do was cut these mount tabs off because they went, obviously clear in to here, and the fender wouldn't mount. So I had to cut them back. I polished them. I smoothed them all out, got everything set up. So now the fender would mount. One of the issues that you'll run into when you're doing this, now these are a Fatboy style lower leg. The spacing here is actually narrower on these than it is on an FL style fender. Now with this fender, the holes were elongated, so I'm not sure if that's something that they were working on when they had this project or not. I don't know. I think they were maybe thinking of the future and running this type of a leg. I don't know. Or maybe this is just something that they had picked up and that's just kind of how it was. But thankfully, because these holes were kind of oblong, it made it so the screws fit through. Now, if you have a stock style shovelhead, panhead, older fender with this type of mount here, the spacing for the mount holes is going to be too close together. So you'd have to actually, drill them out. So thankfully, this one was already done. Now, one of the things I need to work on is getting this brake mounted and figure that out. Now, I know I'm going to have to space this rotor away from the wheel a little bit, and I do have a couple spacer options. So what I'm going to have to do is hang the caliper on here, see what my spacing is, and go from there. All right, now we've got the caliper installed properly. What I ended up having to do was space the rotor out from the wheel, so I have the right spacer in there, and what that does is moves the rotor out, I can't remember what it was, about the distance of a rotor, maybe not quite that far, enough to make it connect with the brake caliper properly. So now this is connected right, and it spins pretty well. I'm hanging up on the other side of the lift here, but it does spin freely. Now I need to go ahead and Loctite these bolts in so everything's Loctited down. That way nothing can vibrate out. I probably won't Loctite these, but I know I need to Loctite these. I gotta get the red out and Loctite these in place. But everything here on the front end is buttoned up the way it should be properly. So now I can start working on the rest of the bike. I did put a poll up on my Instagram feed asking which caliper people liked better. So I do have the silver or the gray, or I do have the black. There's a poll on there, and if you'd like to vote on that, go ahead and hit up my Instagram. It's Rocky's Chop Shop. Check it out. Let me know what your thoughts are, which one you like better. I mean, obviously everything on the bike is black, but the rear brake is going to be, the rear brake caliper, is a GMA, and it is polished, and it's going to be, a silver in color, much like the lower legs here. Well, friends, that's it for this video. I just kind of wanted to run you through the process of changing out this front end and what I needed to do to make this thing work. It was a little bit of a challenge, honestly. I haven't actually cut aluminum or cut a lot of metal out of a bike to, make things fit. It was pretty neat. The process was cool to actually measure everything out, cut it away, and then go ahead and polish and refinish everything so it, looked like it should. So now I have these awesome lowers that, fit the fender properly and look like they're supposed to. And I have a working brake, and everything is coming together just like it needs to be. Anyway, friends, that's it for today. I appreciate you guys following along. If you like the video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. If you like these types of videos and your friends like these types of videos, please feel free to share my content. I'm continuing to grow this channel, and I appreciate all of my subscribers. I'm looking to gain as many as possible and, grow this thing as far as I can possibly take it. So if you could help me out with that by sharing videos, of course, subscribing if you have not, commenting on my videos, liking my videos, those types of things to get that algorithm, dialed in. That way, everybody that's on YouTube could possibly see this. Anyway, that's my small ask for the day. I hope you all are having a great day. We'll catch you next time.